morning and welcome to another edition of the Auditing Insanity Newscast. I'm Jim Finch and I'll be your host with stories on Floyd Wallace, Press with Rancor, and Chili DeCastro. We'll also have a look at this day in history and we'll be rounding things out with an extended Phantom editorial in our GoFundMe column. We got the news earlier that we are only 78 subscribers away from level 1 monetization on YouTube, which excites us greatly. Pope Phil II just said that he was taking Mrs. Pope Phil II for the happiest 15-second ride of her life. We're not sure what he meant by that, but he said he was bringing her ice cream in celebration. So there's that. Level 1 monetization will bring super chats, super stickers, and basic memberships to the channel. Not sure if we'll be able to overload with Corgi and Roddy emojis at that level, but you never know. We're gearing up for it anyway. I just want to thank everyone for motivating all of us to stick with it, and can only promise more of the mid-grade mediocre news every night that we present. We're trying, folks, but I think it's the subject matter that keeps pulling us down. It's hard to see the stars when you're dealing with this much sewage, and speaking of that, let's dive into the bowl and see what we get as we look at GoFundMe Press with Rancor takes day. Jose Chili DeCastro's fundraiser for Garrett Press with Rancor dominated Friday's GoFundMe take with $1,530 in new donations from a late evening fundraiser, with DeCastro promising to match the funds from his own personal bank account. As we're looking at his win over in its own article, we're going to be focusing on our own second place win and some changes associated with the production of the newspaper and daily newscast. Our fund took in $200 for a second place win, not to take anything from DeCastro's great victory or to overinflate what went on with our own win yesterday. It was from a donor making an easier donation to our GoFundMe rather than figuring out exactly what we needed for flea treatment of the cats off of our animal-related Amazon registry. We'll probably be taking in more donations like that, so it's not reflective of the overall health of our campaign, as we had another large donation earlier in the week for a targeted donation with a specific purpose. As always, you'll see receipts over on our Discord server in the dedicated receipts channel. Right now, the receipt for the flea treatment is up, along with some of the purchases we've made with the donation from earlier in the week. We're looking into moving as many of our ongoing expenses into yearly expenses and getting them out of the way for the next year as more donations come in. Then we'll be focusing on expanding our purchases to one more big item for the fall. News forthcoming. Please know that this is a huge change, as my life is currently on display to everyone. While incidental purchases aren't accounted for, occasional fast food meals, buying a $5 movie off of Fandango at home, etc., showing the work and where the donations are going to is pretty much a requirement based on the actions of the person who ran our previous home. While we weren't involved in his activities, it is important to be as transparent and boring as possible with transactions, so there's no question as to where the money is going as donations are made. There's more news we'll sneak in here, as the column is more often hijacked for everything but the focus of the article anyway. DeCastro threw us off this morning as he actually had things to say in his 3-hour live stream. Starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, or right when we needed to go to bed to be up for 3 a.m., he went on for 90 minutes of semi-meaningful news in between his babble about donations. This, of course, killed us at 3 a.m. Do you know how hard it is to be up that early and then having to sit through Chili DeCastro's babble? I know it's our job, but mornings like this sidetrack everything. I know, it's awful that I must watch the actual source before doing the article. But seriously, late in the evening news kills our workflow and kills the chances for getting the news out before noon on most days. It's also a change that is playing havoc with our scheduling, and I apologize for it. I signed up to do a newspaper. Everything else sort of morphed out of that, and I'm trying to get into a regular release pattern for fans of the old paper and our new YouTube presence. With the change from putting out a daily newspaper to doing a daily newspaper and a daily newscast in widescreen format, then a watch-along party in vertical format, and needing to fall over dead asleep at 6 a.m., it's certainly a change. In the past, I could get away with writing 2 or 3 pages total for the newspaper and be done with it. Now, 2 pages means 3.5 to 4 minutes of airtime. We average between 14 and 17 minutes per newscast, so our page count comes in between 6 and 8 pages a day, depending on how fast I read everything. That doubling to quadrupling written content to feed the newscast is what's killing the early morning paper, and again, I apologize for it. Trying to shuffle the hours in the day to figure out how I can do everything, as I can't afford help, and I know I'm too much of a control freak to work with everyone. Adding Verbo to the newscast watch party has helped, and quietly giving the all-star panels over to the panel to dominate is also helping a bit. It's out of necessity, and it's a lot of fun to see who's stepping up and running the shows as I push play on the videos in the background. I may just shift focus to the overnight hours and start production and go all night again. I need to do something to change things so those who love the paper in the morning aren't forgotten. That's important to me, and I'll work out a plan to make sure things are course corrected as I move forward. On that note, if you'd like to step up for our missing in action hate watcher, hey, hope you're okay, you bastard. In forcing us to continue to write this column each morning, we do have a GoFundMe of our own. All proceeds go to keeping the lights on, eating, and writing new stories to feature here and on ReallyCoolSite.org. DeCastro holds Mediocre fundraiser for Rancor. An admittedly broke Jose Chili DeCastro attempted to stun everyone with a return to his supposed massive talents and fundraising on Friday night, with an unsuccessful attempt to put a dent in the $30,000 he owes for Garrett Press with Rancor's Van Net's legal bills. Despite DeCastro's previous claims of being the greatest fundraiser in history, his endeavors took in approximately $1,530 during his 3-hour fundraiser. He split the 3-hour show with 90 minutes dedicated to Press with Rancor's story and an interview with Press with Rancor's lawyer, Jim Mikowski, and the rest devoted to anti-police videos. The YouTuber explained that Rancor decided to start auditing based on DeCastro's own call for action, and he feels responsible that Rancor, who is an extreme introvert, is facing problems with the law. DeCastro explained that because of this, he would be matching all funds brought in during the fundraiser with money from his own bank account, despite struggling for funds of his own at the moment. DeCastro feigned shock at Mikowski's news that the officer involved in Rancor's current arrest was the same one involved in a previous incident with Rancor. He continued the exaggerated reaction as Mikowski revealed that Rancor had experienced run-ins with the officer's father, also a police officer, and that the officer's sister works in the office of the prosecutor who is trying the case. This new theory of generational conspiracy to frame Rancor for the crimes he's on trial for is information that had been previously featured many times by DeCastro in live streams and in produced videos for the channel. Rancor is facing felony charges of obstructing an officer and refusing to obey a lawful command from an arrest in Michigan last year. Mikowski painted Rancor's huge body frame, social awkwardness, and introvert status as factors in Rancor's arrests. He described Rancor as a sweet man who was socially challenged and not a perceived threat to anyone. DeCastro entered a $48,000 contract with attorney Mikowski earlier in the year, signing a contract to pay $6,000 a month to cover Van Net's legal expenses. He managed to make 3 of those payments with help from his fans before he was incarcerated in the Clark County, Nevada detention center. While Mikowski agreed to suspend payments while DeCastro was incarcerated, jury selection for the trial begins on Tuesday and payments are due. Mikowski indicated that he felt strongly that he would be able to find a non-biased jury despite Rancor's supposed extreme fame in the tiny community on Michigan's Upper Peninsula. DeCastro remains uncommitted to appearing at the trial in support of Rancor, despite previous promises to make an appearance. Rancor's GoFundMe had also not received DeCastro's matching donations as of press time. Wallace continues to endorse sex tourism. A new video released on Floyd Wallace's foreign only YouTube channel saw the YouTuber continue his endorsement of sex tourism and shared his thoughts on women from third world countries, dating, and the struggle with time. The new video was taken from an interview with YouTuber Jamie Woods earlier in the year and focused on the question of how Wallace deals with relationships with women in the countries he visits, despite knowing that he could not stay in the countries past 90 days. Wallace was candid that he ensures that the women he enters into sexual relationships with know that he is not going to be a long-time love and that he has no intention of honoring a commitment to them when he's away from them. The YouTuber explained that he felt like life is too short to wait for sex and relationships with one person, especially if you can only be present in their country for a small portion of the year. He indicated that he preferred sexual transactions instead of a long-term relationship, and that he could not see himself settling down anytime soon, as sexual encounters with women in third world countries were plentiful and required minimal effort on his part. Wallace recently indicated in other videos that it was too much work in the United States to satisfy his sexual needs, even with pay to play on the table. He stated that he preferred finding sexual partners in third world countries due to the willingness of the women to bed an American. He praised the lifestyle as he could return to a country multiple times and experience new and different women each time without repercussion. The YouTuber called out Argentina as a country that black men should avoid visiting, as he had a horrible experience entering the country. He claimed that Argentinian authorities demanded to see his bank account balance after seeing that he was not carrying cash. They wanted to prove that he was not broke and to establish that he was an American and not from a nation from an unspecified country in Africa. Wallace described women in Argentina as being discriminatory towards black men, and that one woman he attempted to cold approach simply ran off when he attempted to get her Instagram and WhatsApp contact details. Explaining that he left the country soon after that encounter, Wallace warned his fellow sex travelers to be aware of being labeled a sex pest in countries outside of the United States because it could result in unwanted jail time. Wallace has previously asserted that he was going to be visiting Colombia as the next stop on his continuing sex tourism schedule. DeCastro fundraising dominates this day in history. 1 year ago today, Jose Chile DeCastro announced that he was temporarily suspending his successful fundraising efforts on behalf of Jason and Heather Dollahide, as he had covered the family's bills for the month. Before suspending the campaign, DeCastro had encouraged his fans to skip meals and put aside petty purchases in order to come up with the money to help Heather Dollahide to raise the money for her husband's bond. DeCastro then openly encouraged Heather Dollahide to invest all the money that had been raised for bond on her husband's behalf into retaining a lawyer who would work on releasing her husband. He then dismissed her fears that giving all the money to the lawyer would take away all the money she had for the actual bond. The YouTuber had a busy day as his legal effort on behalf of Floyd Wallace's then ongoing lawsuit against the Las Vegas Metro Police Department was granted an extension to respond to the LVMPD's motion to dismiss the case. The LVMPD did not oppose the motion. DeCastro had previously denied having any involvement in Wallace's case, despite the case itself being filed by DeCastro, paid for by DeCastro, and having language identical to language used in DeCastro's own lawsuit against the LVMPD. The motion was also odd as it contained objections to police describing Wallace, a black man, as black, the color of the mask Wallace was wearing during the incident, and the direction a gun was pointed at him during his apprehension. Outside of the world of Jose Chile DeCastro, YouTuber Christopher Direct D. Ruff encouraged his 236,000 subscribers to call flood the Nazis at the Mesa, Arizona Police Records Department. Ruff was upset that the records office was unable to release documents to a proxy. The records had been requested in the past but never picked up. Due to department policy, the records department was unable to fulfill the request for 700 pages of information Ruff had requested about his name, his alias, and his police-watching activities. Under department policy, the original requester of the documents needed to pick up the documents in person as they contained confidential information. Ruff was unable to pick the documents up himself as there was an active warrant for his arrest in Mesa for skipping court dates. The YouTuber felt unsafe picking up the documents as he would then be apprehended by police, which he was attempting to avoid. The warrant is still active a year later, with Ruff recently abandoning efforts to raise money for an attorney to help him clear up the warrants. And now we need a shower. Ooh, can we smell DeCastro from here, let alone Direct D? What is it with these guys who just stink of medical Parker? That lady gets around whenever Spider-Man goes out of town, that's for sure. Remember, tomorrow we're changing the time the Week in Review show to 9 a.m. Pacific. At the request of her own power-mad Chicago gangster in the hizzy, she's made it clear that she's not waking up at 6 a.m. Pacific time anymore just to hear the luscious sounds of the Week in Review. She threatened to make us eat real fruits and vegetables for a week if we didn't comply, so yes ma'am, right away ma'am, is our response. And on that horrible thought, we're out of here. See you on the floppity flips.